Now a WFSB Plus original. This is the I-Team Stream.
Good afternoon and welcome to the I-Team Stream. I'm Chief Investigative Reporter Sam Smink.
And I'm Consumer Investigative Reporter Cassidy Williams. Today we're talking about Sam's investigation that found ambulance response times in the city of Hartford have been going up for years. We're going to break down how she found this out and the calls for action that have come since the story first aired.
We started looking into this after we received a tip about a 911 call involving an unconscious child. A 911 call where the ambulance was taking so long getting there, police ended up driving the baby to the hospital themselves. Take a look. When every second counts, what happened April 5th, 2023 in the city of Hartford?
Hartford 911, what's the location of your emergency?
Hello, 30 Rosemont Street. My baby stopped breathing all of a sudden.
The call for an unconscious child came in at 6:08 a.m.
How old's the baby?
He's 6 months.
Within a minute and 10 seconds, the 911 dispatcher notifies AMR ambulance and continues to talk to the caller.
Do you know how to do CPR or give breath?
No. Can you hurry up?
Yes, they're on their way, sir.
5 minutes later, the dispatcher calls AMR again.
For Rosemont, no one's found none yet?
No, we're just trying to get him out now.
Another 4 minutes goes by, and dispatch calls AMR for a third time. AMR says they are still looking for an ambulance. Police have already arrived, so has the fire department.
Yeah, we're doing CPR on an infant, and we can't seem to get an ambulance.
13 minutes into the call, AMR says they are sending out an ambulance. It's 10 minutes out. Hartford Dispatch decides to call Aetna to see if they have a closer ambulance, but it's just as far. More than 20 minutes into the 911 call, AMR tells dispatch a different ambulance is on the way, but it's 11 minutes away. A supervisor tells officers they have to decide what happens next.
70 to 220. You have to make a judgment call and transport yourselves. Do so.
22 minutes and 26 seconds after the initial 911 call, Hartford police drive the baby to the hospital themselves, while a firefighter and police officer continue CPR in the car. In their report, police say they did so because an ambulance could not respond in a reasonable amount of time. When they did get to the hospital, the baby was in critical condition. The child later died.
There's enough blame here to go around.
Ben Zura has been an EMT for 19 years. He's now on the state's EMS advisory board. Transporting patients from medical calls is not something the police or the fire department are supposed to do.
This is not supposed to happen. We have systems in place to prevent this from happening, and they've all failed.
Why were police put in that position? AMR would not answer any of our questions, telling us they were unable to comment about the specific incident. Was this just a one-time occurrence? To find out, the I-Team started digging into ambulance response times in the city of Hartford. Hartford has contracts with 2 ambulance companies to respond to calls, Aetna and AMR. Aetna covers the south side of the city, AMR covers the north. We took response times we got from the city of Hartford Dispatch and created this graph. These are priority A calls, those that require the fastest response. You can see month after month, year after year, times are steadily increasing.
This is... That's crazy. Those response times have steadily increased for almost 5 years, and nobody has noticed.
In 2023, the year the 911 call came in about the 6-month-old, the city's records show AMR's average for priority A calls alone was 11 minutes and 24 seconds. For Aetna, it was 10 minutes and 29 seconds. AMR and Aetna say the time we should use is 6 minutes 50 seconds. That's the average response time state records have for the city of Hartford in 2023. AMR says this figure underscores our compliance with the agreement we have in place with the city and reflects our dedication to operational excellence. But that state average combines response times for AMR, Aetna, and other mutual aid coming into the city. It doesn't give a clear picture of any agency's individual performance. The companies did not share their month-by-month numbers. So why are the city and state's numbers so different? It all comes down to when to start the clock. As far as the city is concerned, it starts when the call comes into dispatch. AMR and Aetna tell us they calculate times based on when they accept the call, which they say is the national standard. That disconnect is where the problem lies.
That is the blind spot.
Zura says in his opinion, relying on dispatch data is more accurate because it shows where gaps in services could be. For example, the data the state has would not include the April 5th, 2023 911 call because an ambulance never responded. There wasn't one available. Zura says we need to study those kinds of delays.
We're relying on the data that's generated by the ambulance that eventually gets to the scene. And none of this sort of scramble for an available ambulance beforehand is recorded in that. The dispatch data records that.
The point is, response times in Hartford are going up. Why? Is it a dispatch or ambulance provider issue? Is it a question of ambulances not being available, or is the dispatch process taking too long? We asked Hartford Chief Rodney Barco. His department oversees EMS services.
In general, there's a bigger picture to be had with just AMR or Aetna being the sole responsibility for that particular issue. Like, there could be a number of things that may cause a delayed response.
Chief Barco said he didn't have an exact answer for us.
We don't have the time frame from when we send it over to them and then the time they dispatch. The only thing that, in terms of response data, is that we can be 100% accurate on is response data from fire.
AMR and Aetna stress we should be using the numbers they give to the state because it removes anomalies and only starts counting from the moment their own dispatchers accept the call. The city's contract with AMR says the times recorded by the city are the official times. The city did not have Aetna's contract on file. No one can tell us exactly what is happening because they aren't looking at it. Zura says we need to study all of it.
Neither the state nor the municipality, the city has noticed this. That's really hard to accept. In fact, it's unacceptable.
As for April 5th, 2023, despite the efforts of police and fire, the boy died at the hospital. We still don't know how or why the boy died.
Okay, anything? Do you see him moving at all?
No, he's not moving.
Nothing?
All Hartford police will tell us is they're still investigating.
When we asked the state about all of this, they said they are simply following state law when it comes to response time data collection. We asked AMR and Aetna multiple times to sit down with us. They declined and would only respond to us through email. Both say their response times are shared regularly with the city and have not received negative feedback regarding their performance.
So you talked a lot about the back and forth with this data. At the end of the day, the time, if I pick up the phone and call and I need an ambulance, for the time an ambulance to get there, your data shows that's going up. Is that the takeaway?
Yes, exactly. That's the data that we looked at. And that's the data I think the average citizen would really care about. We think about the moment that we pick up the phone and call 911. And then we hope to see an ambulance within a reasonable amount of time. So the data that we got from the dispatch looks at that. It's from the moment you pick up the phone and connect with them at 911 to the moment the ambulance arrives on scene. Now, AMR and Aetna say we should be looking at it from the moment their own dispatch picks it up, but we wanted to look at the EMS system as a whole, and that gives the clearest picture for the average person who is relying and calling 911.
And to get that graph that shows how the response times are going up, that wasn't something the city had before you started looking into this, right? How did you create that graph?
No, when we first made our data request asking for these calls to be separated not only by call type, priority A, which is the most important, priority C, kind of the non-emergency response types, breaking it down by year and month, they said that was not something that they regularly did, which was very surprising because I would think that's how you're keeping a look at the response times, but it seems that they relied on AMR and Aetna to show them their response times. So they were just looking at, AMR and Aetna's response and not necessarily looking at a whole from the moment that the phone call is started with dispatch. And so we took all of those times and all over those 4 years and those averages, and we made the graphs out of that. And it looks like they are going to start looking at the data that way. Someone at the city had told me, this is not something that we did before, but it's something that we're looking at now.
Yeah, and let's talk about, after this story aired, what kind of reaction? And we've got quite a few emails from people. Not everyone wants to talk on record, but what are some things you've heard since this story aired?
So one of the biggest things we heard was from State Senator Saud Anwar, who is a very big advocate for the EMS system and improving it. He's a doctor himself as well as a state lawmaker. He said this is something he has been sounding the alarm on for a while now. And in 2022, he actually tried to pass a bill that would change the way data collection comes in. Because yes, he understands that the ambulance services want to look at data a certain way and from the moment that they accept the call. But he says to get an idea of the system as a whole, we should be looking at it from the moment that the 911 call comes in, the dispatch data, which is what we had. And he says it's just a bigger way for us to look at the system, as I said, as a whole, because then you can see where there might be gaps in services, and then you can figure out, oh, it's taking really long in this city or really long in this town or this time. Is it a staffing issue? Is it something more than that? Because he says beyond the data collection, he's looking at the staffing issues we're seeing with EMS and EMTs across the state, and the Medicaid funding, because the Medicaid reimbursement rate right now for EMTs and EMS is very low. And he says that is causing ambulance services to not be able to have the money that they normally would have. So that, again, you're seeing a decrease in staffing, and all of that is going to affect response times in the end. So that's still the way that we're looking at this issue, and the best way to kind of put it in a data form.
Yeah, there seems like there's a lot of different places to go from here and things to look into. What are you working on right now to kind of follow up on this?
I've heard from a ton of people who say it's not just who say we need to look at every step. We need to look at the way dispatch communicates, and not just in the city of Hartford, but across the state, especially in the major cities where we're seeing the most 911 calls. We need to look at the moment that dispatch reaches out to AMR and Aetna dispatch or the ambulance dispatch. We need to look at how long it's taking these ambulance companies dispatch to get a hold of these ambulances. We need to see how long it's taking them to get to the scene, because we know in some of the rural areas that we don't have as much staffing as we normally would, and so therefore mutual aid is kicking in from other cities and states. So there's so many avenues that we're looking at right now, and I encourage anyone who has any sort of information they think I need to know to reach out to us, because I'm willing to look at it all and really dig, because I think this is a really important issue. We never want to see something like with what happened with the 6-month-old.
Yeah, we all might need to use 911 one day and care about what happened. So anything else you want to touch on that you think, you know, we didn't necessarily have time for on the full version that you think is important to get out there about all of this?
I think I could go on forever, but I definitely want people to take away that they should still call 911. This isn't an issue where we're saying, you know, don't call 911 because nobody's going to come there. Still call 911, but we're looking into this because we want to help improve the EMS system as well. You know, when I first got this tip about the 911 call, it's because I had been hearing from people in the industry for some time now that there was a problem with maybe ambulances not being available or calls being stacked because they didn't have the availability at the time because they were doing transports or they're doing other stuff, or they're just busy with calls that maybe aren't the calls that they should respond to and should be police or fire. And this 911 call came in, and the people I was talking to said this is a perfect example of what can happen when we're not trying to figure out what is really the root cause of this.
Yeah. So people should still call 911, but if you run into a problem, you can reach out to us and we can look into it. Sam can continue looking into all of this. That is your iTeam stream for today. Join us on WFSB Plus the first Friday of every month at 1:30 as we take a deeper dive into our investigations.
And as we just said, if you have something you think should be investigated, let us know. Just head to WFSB.com, click on the iTeam tab, and then contact the iTeam. Have a good day, everyone.